A wolf spider can lift more than 50 times its own body weight using nothing but hydraulic pressure in its leg. If a human being had that same strength-to-weight ratio, you could lift a loaded school bus over your head with one arm. You probably think that if a spider's abilities somehow transferred into a human body, you would become something close to superhuman, stronger, faster, able to climb walls and sense danger before it happens. That is the version everyone already has in their head, the one built by decades of movies and comic books. That is not remotely how this would actually work. If your body somehow inherited a spider's real physical traits at full human scale, the outcome would not make you a hero. It would very likely put you in a hospital bed within the first week. And the reason comes down to a law of physics that has nothing to do with radiation, mutation, or genetics. It has to do with the simple, unforgiving math of size itself. You wake up in a tent in the Olympic National Forest in Washington State. 4 days into a solo backpacking trip you have been planning since spring. You are 31, an electrician from Tacoma, and you chose this trail specifically because it barely sees any foot traffic. Something on your forearm itches badly enough to pull you out of sleep. In the gray pre-dawn light filtering through the tent fabric, you see a small dark spider drop off your arm and disappear into the seam of your sleeping bag. There is a raised red mark where it bit you, already swelling slightly at the edges. You do what any reasonable person does. You clean it with water from your bottle, take a photo in case it gets worse, and decide to keep hiking since you're 2 days from the trailhead either way, and it does not look serious. By that evening, something is different, and it is not the bite itself. You notice it first when you are setting up camp. A twig snaps somewhere off the trail, easily 40 feet away, and your head turns toward the sound before you consciously register that you heard anything at all. Your hearing has not gotten louder in any obvious way. It has gotten more precise, able to separate individual sounds inside what used to be background noise, the way a sound engineer can isolate one instrument inside a full recording. This is the first real clue about what is actually happening inside your nervous system. And it is worth understanding correctly before anything else in this story, because it is the part almost every fictional version gets completely wrong. Spiders do not have ears in any sense a human would recognize. Instead, most species detect the world through specialized sensory hairs called trichobothria, arranged along their legs, capable of detecting air vibrations and ground vibrations with extraordinary precision, essentially reading the physical world as a constant stream of tiny movements rather than sound in the way you experience it. If a version of that sensory system somehow activated inside a human nervous system, what you would actually get is not enhanced hearing. You would get an entirely new sense, one your brain has no existing framework to process, arriving all at once with no volume control and no way to turn it off. By the second night, you cannot sleep in the tent anymore. Every gust of wind against the fabric, every small animal moving through underbrush 100 feet away, arrives with the same intensity as something happening directly beside your head. You lie awake for hours, exhausted in a way that has nothing to do with physical exertion, because your brain is now processing an enormous continuous stream of sensory information it was never built to filter. This is the part of the story that matters most, and it is where the fictional version and the biological reality split apart completely. Your body runs on a fixed energy budget. Roughly 2,000 calories a day for an average adult doing moderate activity. Almost all of it already allocated to keeping your organs running, your temperature regulated, and your existing senses processing normally. A dramatically upgraded nervous system, one now handling an entirely new category of sensory input around the clock, does not run for free. Nervous tissue is metabolically expensive tissue. Your brain alone, at roughly 2% of your total body weight, already consumes about 20% of your resting energy use. Add a continuously active new sensory system on top of that, and your body has exactly two options. Divert massive amounts of energy away from other systems to power it, or begin failing to keep up with its own demands. You experience the second option directly. By day 3, you are eating everything in your food supply and still feel like you have not eaten anything at all. Your hands are shaking slightly. You feel cold despite direct afternoon sun, a sign your body is having trouble maintaining its core temperature while diverting resources elsewhere. This same energy problem is exactly why the popular idea of gaining a spider's proportional strength falls apart the moment you actually run the numbers, and this is where the physics comes in. A spider's strength relative to its body weight looks miraculous specifically because it is so small. This comes down to something biologists call the square cube law, first explained clearly by the scientist J.B.S. Haldane in a widely cited 1926 essay called On Being the Right Size. As any object increases in size, its strength, which depends on the cross-sectional area of muscle or structure, increases by the square of the scale factor. Its weight, which depends on volume, increases by the cube, double the size of any creature, and its strength roughly quadruples, but its weight increases roughly eightfold. This is precisely why a spider can lift 50 times its body weight, and an elephant cannot lift even its own body weight off the ground using the same proportional muscle structure a spider has. The math simply does not scale up. If your body somehow gained a spider's proportional strength at your actual size and weight, roughly 180 pounds, the increased muscular tissue required to generate that force would need blood flow, oxygen, and caloric fuel far beyond what your cardiovascular system is built to deliver. Your heart, unchanged and still human-sized, would be attempting to supply a dramatically higher output muscular system through the exact same blood vessels it has always had. This is not a recipe for effortlessly lifting cars. It is a recipe for a cardiac event. By day 4, hiking out toward the trailhead, this becomes undeniable. Your legs feel unusually powerful, in short bursts, strong enough that a single stride covers noticeably more ground than it should. But each burst leaves you gasping, heart pounding against your ribs, sweat pouring off you despite the cool forest air. Your body is generating force it cannot actually sustain because the muscle tissue may have changed, but the circulatory system feeding it did not. You make it to the trailhead and drive yourself to an urgent care clinic in Tacoma rather than waiting to see if things improve on their own, which turns out to be the single decision that matters most in this entire story. Blood tests reveal an elevated white blood cell count, and unusual markers the attending physician has genuinely never seen before. You are transferred to a research hospital in Seattle within 6 hours. Over the following weeks, doctors document what has actually happened to you, and it is stranger and more limited than anything a movie would show. Your auditory and tactile processing has genuinely changed, likely from a novel protein compound in the spider's venom interacting with your nervous system in a way researchers are still working to understand. Your muscle density has increased measurably, though nowhere near what fiction imagines, and your cardiovascular system has been placed under significant chronic strain trying to support it. You are not swinging between buildings. You are, for months afterward, someone managing a genuinely exhausting new sensory disorder alongside a heart that needs monitoring. Here is the honest answer to the question this entire video was actually building toward. If something like this happened to you, the correct move is not to test your new abilities, hide the symptoms, or wait to see how far they go. It is to treat it exactly like any unexplained, rapidly progressing physiological change and get to a hospital immediately, the same way you would for a severe allergic reaction or an unexplained neurological symptom. The fictional version of this story rewards secrecy and delay. The real version of this story only has a good ending because you did not choose either of those things. A year later, your hearing has partially returned to something closer to normal range, though doctors tell you it may never fully reset. Your cardiologist still sees you twice a year. You do not climb walls. You do not swing through the city. What you actually have is a genuinely rare medical case study, a permanently reduced tolerance for loud environments, and a very specific, very informed opinion about what popular fiction gets wrong about turning into something other than human. The real lesson was never about gaining power. It was about what your body actually has to spend to generate it, and why nature already spent millions of years solving that exact problem by making the creatures capable of those feats very, very small.